In this video, we are breaking down the results, the events, the outcomes of the peak performance event that Apple just released. Yes, we've got brand new iPhones, iPads, and Macs, and we're going to break all of that down in this one. Welcome to the show. On the agenda today, we've got a summary of what actually went down. If you want just the facts, we've got some deep dives into the iPhone, the iPad, the Mac Studio, and the Studio Display, and then we're going to open it up to some Q&A. So if you're here on the replay, jump down into the description because we got some timestamps down there for you to save you some time and energy. We'll jump straight into this because if you just want to know the absolute facts of what went down here, that's what we're going to cover in the next 5 minutes. So Apple announced the all-new Mac Studio and Studio Display, a new iPad Air, a new iPhone SE third generation, and some new colors for the iPhone 13. Yeah, green. It's all about green. We also got a bunch of information about a brand new chip for the Mac, and we'll let you know about that in just a minute. Let's jump in and see what actually went down. So off the front of the event, the iPhone SE version 3. Now, I love the iPhone SE. It's a great little iPhone. It's based on the iPhone 8, and not a whole lot has changed about this. You've still got the home button there, you've still got the single camera, but the guts are what are different. We've got a whole brand new A15 Bionic chip, the same as the iPhone 13. We've got the same bezels and everything going on there, but we also have 5G that's been added. So they're the main changes. Look, I love this phone. My wife loves it. She's got the iPhone SE second generation, and it is just a great combination for those that still love their home buttons but want something that's going to be high performance and high reliability. Yeah, you really can't go wrong, to the point where I'm considering trading in my iPhone 12 Pro for the SE3 with the better guts, because I really don't need all the cameras and the screens and the notches and the Face ID. This looks like a pretty good deal. So we'll talk about it a little more as we get into the more detailed chat about this. We got a new iPad Air. Yeah, the new iPad Air 5th generation. The 4th generation got a bit of a nudge here. So you've still got the touch button at the top there. You've still got the Face ID. Sorry, not Face ID. You've still got the single camera on this one, but you got some all new guts. And that is the big news here, is that we've got the M1 chip. Yeah, the M1 chip that's now in the Macs and is in the iPad Pros is now in the iPad Air 5th generation. You also get 5G on that sucker, and that's about it. So it's starting at the same price, so $599 for the 64 gig, $749 for the 256 gig. Oh yes, and the prices on that iPhone SE were $429 for the 64 and $579 for the 256. Those are US dollars. And I got a question there from Mark. Is the iPhone SE3 still Lightning? Yes. Apple have still got only Lightning on all of their phones. So here's a little bit about the Air. You can see there it's compatible with the keyboards, the Lightning, the Magic keyboards, as well as the Folio keyboards. It's running iPad OS, and that big thing down there in the bottom corner is the M1, which will bring it a whole lot more in the way of performance. Let's move on to the next bit, which was this. Yeah, I haven't buried the lead. Apple buried the lead on the price of this. I'm not. So we've got some brand new Macs. Now, these are like Mac Minis. They're like a double height Mac Mini. It's like if the Mac Mini mated with the old Mac Pro. So you got the same sort of form factor, the same footprint as a Mac Mini, but it's a lot higher because it's packing in a whole lot more connectivity. Now, you've got $19.99 there for the M1 Max variety, and $39.99 for the M1 Ultra, which is Apple's brand new chip. Yeah, it's like they took two Maxes, smooshed them together, and they got the Ultra. So it's like a superhero lineup here with the Mac version. So what do we get in the way? Well, this is all where we're going to spend a bit of time when we do the deep dive, because there's a lot new here and there's a lot to talk about and a lot to love. So you can see there with the design, you've got the front there, you've got a couple of USB-Cs, or a couple of Thunderbolts, in fact, ports, and the SD card. On the back, you get 4 Thunderbolts, you get the LAN connection, you get 2 USB-A, and an HDMI, as well as a, what do they call, like a high impedance music output jack. it's a headphone jack. So yes, it's very cool to see that at least Apple's top of the line machine still has a headphone jack. So and yes, look, it's not cheap. It's not for the. I've already seen a comment this morning from someone that said this is all very very cool. Not going to change my decision. I'm still going with the Mac, the iMac, and I'll be the same. It's like, yeah, the Mac Mini is still a great buy. This is overkill. If you're a GarageBand user or if you're a light video and audio user, you probably don't need this. But if you're in the studio and you're excited to get cracking and do some high level work, this is for you. We also got a brand new studio display. Again, not going to bury the lead. It's $15.99, which I think my last monitor cost me $300. So it is a premium monitor. But here's the thing. I was about to poo-poo it, and then I saw what it actually did. It's basically like an iMac screen because it actually has 3 USB-C ports in there. It's also got a Thunderbolt port in there that can actually power up other stuff. So you can plug in your laptop to your monitor and charge it. Pretty darn cool. And it's also got the same sort of microphone array and speaker array that we saw in the M1 iMac, which means that you've got those studio quality microphones and you've got the 6-speaker sound system there, the stereo sound system. So that is your summary. So again, just to cover that, you've got your new iPhone SE 3, you've got your iPad Air 5th generation, which looks like an absolute little beast. It's like the iPad Pro, just slightly slimmed down. And then you've got your Mac Studio with the studio display. None of this is going to be, I guess the SE3 is pretty cheap and is a good value product. The others are definitely higher end stuff. All of this can be ordered right now and is delivered, available from the 18th of March. And all the prices, of course, are over at apple.com in your particular country. Yes, Alex Backus, headphone jack for the win. Exactly right. Thomas Christ says, guess this will be in between the iMac and the Mac Pro since they teased they'd be releasing a new Pro later. Yeah, great point. They did actually do that. So right at the end of the Mac Studio, just when you thought nothing else could come, they said, oh yeah, this is a good gateway between our Mac Mini and our iMac and the Mac Pro. And we'll be talking about that another day. So I'm sure we'll get another announcement further down the track. Are we going to get an iMac Pro is a good question. I don't know. I can't imagine that they won't. I'd say the next round of things, now that we've seen the M1 Max and the M1 Ultra, will be how do we slide that into an iMac? The only thing will be kind of the form factor and whether they have enough room in there, given that they had to make it double the height to fit in the Max and the Ultra. Whether they can fit that into the current chassis of the iMac will be the question, because the one thing I didn't talk about and we'll chat about in the deep dive is it will require a little bit more cooling to be able to do that. G'day to the folks who are here live. We're about to jump in. If you're just joining us, we just did the overview, so you can go back 5 minutes and you can see the just the facts, ma'am, version of the announcement. And now we're going to jump in one by one and take a look at each individual thing and have a bit of a play around, price them up, see what they do and see who they're for, because that's what we want to do here. I mean, it's very nice to watch the Apple announcement with all the superlatives and everything that they like to throw out there. Everything is magnificent and marvelous and stunning and whatever. But we're real people with real money that we have to spend on real stuff. So let's talk about the iPhone SE 3 and what this is going to do to the landscape of iPhones. So they very much positioned the iPhone SE 3 as an iPhone for new iPhone users. So it's really clear. And they actually made the statement that actually was around the Mac. Sorry, that was a different one. But basically their sales numbers have increased quarter on quarter, like ever since they released the M1 Mac. That's a different story. But their sales on iPhones are continuing to increase. And a lot of folks that are coming over from other devices that are on a budget are looking at the iPhone SE and purchase the iPhone SE 2. And the SE 3 is definitely a bit like the Mac Mini. It's definitely a gateway iPhone. If you're coming over from Android and you're using your first phone, to be able to pay only $429, or what I would suggest, which is $579 for the 256 gig model, because let's be honest, 64 gig, if you're doing any sort of creating on your device, is probably not enough. I would go the 256 gig model there. What's actually changed on this though? What's different about this? Well, the two main things, and the reason that the big 5G is there so big is that 5G is the main thing. The colors, 3 new colors, and look, the new colors, they've called them Midnight, Starlight, and Product Red. the product red was available before. The midnight and starlight are just variations of black and white. But again, it goes to the way that Apple like to say things. And who was it, Mark here, that said, yeah, buttery smooth. Everything is buttery smooth. Huska says, I heard that about 85% of people about age 20 to 35 have an iPhone. It's almost ubiquitous now. It's almost to the point where if I message someone and that message comes up green and not blue, I'm kind of shocked, because the majority of people that I know have an iPhone. Doesn't mean you have to, by the way. I'm not telling you what you need to do at all. But tell you what, if I was out there, if I had $500-600 burning a hole in my pocket and I wanted the best bang for buck, I would pick up a 256 gig iPhone SE3. And in fact, I may do that. Here in Australia, it's about $1,000. I think it's $1,099, or maybe it's $999. We'll price one up later. But yeah, I actually really like the form factor of these. I miss my button on my phone, and I really, as much as I'm used to the notch now, I still don't love the notch. I would rather not have a notch in there. The other things they said about this, as you can see, they're better battery life, and even though it's got the same camera, the exact same camera as before, I just dropped mine. I'm glad there's no moving parts in this, or not many, because it just fell off. I know everyone's always giving me grief about the fact that I just waved that around and now I've paid the price, so it's on the floor. But yeah, it's because it's got the new A15 Bionic. It's got the smart HDR in there, which means that it's just got the image signal processing is improved. So you can see there, that's why they've got deep fusion, they've got the portrait mode on there, and yeah, it's a great option if you're just wanting the basics and you don't necessarily want 3 cameras and all the fancy bells and whistles. Are there any other notes that I had here? I think I've covered everything. Yeah, so pre-order it from today, available the March 18th, and yeah, that's it. And the glass, so they're using the same glass now as they use for the iPhone 13. So it's apparently tougher and apparently better battery life. Again, because of the A15 chip, it's going to give it a pretty good price. Yeah, it's a pretty good deal if you need a new iPhone, for sure. Omni Collective Creativity says having 64 gigs is just barely enough for creating concept albums in iMovie, an hour and 10 minutes long. Yeah, so you probably do want to go with the 256 gig model if you were going to go with this. Hello to Shazam, the producer. I hope you're doing well. I took my 16-inch M1 MacBook Pro back, and I'm glad the Ultra is going to be perfect for me. Yeah, and it's interesting. If you are a high-level producer and you're doing a lot of things, and we'll get to it in a moment, then it is definitely a good option for those that want more power and don't necessarily want the portability. So at the moment, I'm using the M1 Max, the 14-inch M1 Max MacBook. And yeah, look, for me, for the future, as much as the $3,999 price tag doesn't appeal, the power in that thing does. Like that could be your studio machine you buy for the next legitimately 10 years. I honestly think that. So we'll see how we go. Yeah, 5G is pretty impressive, and the A15 is impressive. Yeah, so it's a good little unit, and it's definitely worth checking out if you're in the market for a new phone, or if, like me, you want to downgrade technically to a lower model phone, which is something that one may consider. All right, let's talk iPads, because if you're a creator, if you're a mobile creator and you're using an iPad, I do get asked a lot, and I've actually got an iPad guide over at studiolivetoday.com/iPad, and I'll need to update that because we've got a whole bunch of new stuff coming in here now. But if you're an iPad creator, my sweet spot for the longest time has been the iPad Air 4th generation, because it's got USB-C, which makes your connectivity a whole lot better when you're connecting up all of your gear, your audio interfaces, your microphones, your other stuff. And the screen size, the 11-inch screen size, just is about like the perfect balance. You can use the Apple Pencil too if you're doing sort of artistic creating, and you can add the Magic Keyboard or the Folio keyboard. So I've been saying to folks, look, if you don't have the budget for an iPad Pro, the iPad Air 4 is a great balancing point in between the entry-level iPad or the iPad mini, what it used to be, and the iPad Pro, either the 2020 model, which I had, which is the last A series chip, or the 2021 with the M1 chip. So when this one came out, and it has the M1 on board, it kind of, and it's kept the same price tag, it's kind of made it the go-to now. As Shazam says, the new iPad Air is impressive. Absolutely. So what do we have on this one? So a lot of the stuff has remained the same. The form factor is the same. The camera is basically the same, except that it has the center stage on the front cam. So they've improved the front camera, so you've got that center stage. You've still got Touch ID up there in the corner, which is the way that you turn it on. It's the same as your thumbprint on your home button, except it's at the top there. You've got 5G on this thing now. So for those that are using their iPad on the go and that you're getting a SIM card for it, 5G, pretty cool. True tone display, the landscape stereo speakers, that's all nothing new. You can use that. Now, I haven't done the research on this, but the 2 times faster USB-C. So it's not Thunderbolt, which is a little bit sad, but 2 times faster USB-C, that's got to be a good thing, I guess. So that's, I guess, the only drawback there is that if you're connecting up like Thunderbolt drives and things, you're still only getting USB-C connectivity in this thing as well. Running iPad OS, of course, and the 2 times faster GPU because it's rocking the M1. And again, the price tag on this thing, I'm a bit impressed. It just goes to show the economies of scale that Apple have at the moment, which is that they can actually put out the M1 chip, they can upgrade the Air 4 to the Air 5 and keep it at that same price. So as we mentioned before, it's $599 for the base model, and then it goes up from there. And I think we'll have to check it. I thought I had it in my notes here, but let me just consult. 256 is $749. In fact, you can see it. It's over here in the background. There you go. $749 for the 256 gigabyte model. And look, I don't talk about the colors. You can go check out the colors. They come in different colors. So that's the thing in a place. All right. All right, we've lost my presenting here. Need to represent my presentation view. We're on the wrong screen. Oh no, it's all gone to heck. No, it's fine. We're all good. We have the skills and the abilities to recover. Jade Star says the biggest problem in all these devices is the apps can only use 5 gigabytes of RAM, so the devices are now way too overpowered and the apps can't use the extra power. That is the problem. Like until we go to the whole integrated memory setup, and we go away from the A processors and into the M, which I don't know if they ever will on the phones, it does mean that, for your creativity and for your apps on the phone, you are going to hit that bottleneck at the RAM, at the memory level, whereas if you're using something like 32 gigs on or 16 gigs on an M1, you've got all of that space. Although I think it's still software limited to something like 7 or 8. I can't recall off the top of my head. But the M1 and having everything integrated and having technically the ability to go for that is pretty darn cool, I say. I don't think there was anything else on there. We've talked about that. Yeah, same sort of deal. You can... the one thing that was hidden in the weeds there that you might have seen, or if you watched the review, is that there's a new version of iMovie coming. So they said next month, which is now April, which is a bit sad that it's not going to be available for the release, but a new version of iMovie, and they said they're going to have a storyboards mode. And for creators, especially musical creators, I think that could be pretty cool because LumaFusion does sort of a good job, but it's sort of higher end, and obviously it's a paid app. I think what people that are looking for in iMovie is just the ability to kind of structure out your videos a little bit better. So that piqued my interest when I heard them talk about a new version of iMovie for iPad iOS, which would be very, very cool. Alrighty. Yes, and $599 for an M1 5G seems like a pretty good deal. Yeah, so $599 isn't the 5G. The cellular version is more expensive. $599 is the Wi-Fi version. I think it's $699 or $649 for the 5G version with the SIM card. And then, of course, you have to pay for data. So keep that in mind as well. Or just be like me and be a tight ass and then just tether your iPad to your iPhone because that works just as well. So the iPad Air 5th gen, definitely going to be worth considering. Let's talk Mac, shall we? So as I mentioned, and I've talked about it a bunch of times, I'll try not to drop it this time, but I've been using the Mac M1, the Mac Mini M1 now since it was first released. I am now using, thanks to the loan from Apple, I'm using a MacBook Pro with the M1 Max, which has been absolutely flying along. And like many people, I was intrigued to see what was going to happen this time. Would we get a Mac Mini with an M2 or an M1 Pro or Max? Well, kind of, sort of, not really. We got this nugget. Now, if you thought the Mini was a nugget, look at this little nugget. So this is the Mac Studio. And when they talk studios, they're not just talking about music studios or recording studios. They talked in terms of, obviously video creation studios, but even like the concept of a studio for someone who does scientific research or just basically scientific studies and having to run very processor and graphics and memory intensive apps. So, apps, software. Look how we call everything apps these days. So the base model M1 Max with 32 gig of unified memory and a 512 gig SSD starts at 1999, and we'll talk about all the bells and whistles that these things have in a minute. But they also went over to their Johnny, their chip dude, and he talked all about the M1 Ultra. So as I said before in the preview, in the summary, the M1 Ultra is basically like two M1 Maxes smushed together. They've said, what do they call it? Their Ultra Fusion technology. So they've found a way to basically run two entire M1 Maxes. So it's basically like a double M1 Max. And you can see there that if you get the 64 gig unified memory, 1 terabyte SSD, it's going to start at $399. And we'll have some fun in a minute at the end and do some pricing up of the absolute specced out ones, because that's always a fun thing to do when Apple announce something new. Shazam saying the M1 Ultra is perfect for my video work. Footage and FX will be amazing, and $4,000 is not bad at all. And that's the thing. The price on these, it's for folks that are actually doing this, that are doing it very seriously or for a living. So if you're running a business and you need the ultimate power, time is money. And when you look at $3,999 as a price tag, or obviously more than that if you're going to upgrade it, then yeah, you can say, well, oh, man, why would you pay that when you can pay $699 for the Mac Mini? Well, if you're just creating music in GarageBand or even Logic, then yeah, buy a Mac Mini. Mac Mini is still the best. It's a bit like the iPad Air. The Air is definitely that nice in-betweeny. The Mac Mini or the iMac with the M1 is definitely that nice in-between model. This is for people who know that they need it. If you don't think you need it, you probably don't. And that's the other thing I want to say. With all these announcements, I don't get sort of like down on them, or I don't get positive, because it's just information. It's nice to know and it's nice to have, because the benefit of this is that even if you're not buying the latest and greatest, you're seeing where technology is going, and it usually makes the lower down stuff more affordable. So the iPhone SE3 is a classic example. Yeah, you can buy a $2,500 kitted out iPhone 13 Pro Max, or you can buy the $500 iPhone SE3. And the iPhone SE3 is so good because of the technology that's going into the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So that was my point on that one. Let's take a look at the specs on this thing, because as you can see, it is pretty. Got a little bit of that cheese grater thing on there, and they talked in detail. If you want to get into the weeds and into the specs, you can go and check it all out. They went into the detail of the cooling system, which is apparently designed to be super low noise. It has like what do they call it? A double blower. Like, they actually legitimately said the words double blower on the thing, and I'm like, wouldn't you use like better words than that? Apple usually we call it our buttery, quiet, silent extraction system, patented. I don't know. But anyway, it's got all the little holes there to blow out your air. So yes, people that say Apple are full of hot air, well, this thing is, but they have a cool cooling system to get rid of it. So you can see there on the back, you got yourself 4 Thunderbolt 4 ports, which is very, very cool. You got all of the port required there. If you compare that to something like the Mac Mini on the back here, you've got the 2 Thunderbolt ports, and you've got 2 USB-A. So you've got an extra couple of Thunderbolt ports, so you've got the ability to plug in more gear. You've got a direct LAN port, which is very important, a 10 gigabit Ethernet port. You've got the HDMI there, which is still an important thing. I still rock HDMI, and a lot of people do, even in studio environments. And you've got the headphone jack. What do they call it? Like the high impedance professional level headphone jack. They totally should have called it the cockle warmer. Sorry, that's a bit of an inside joke. I like to feel warm and fuzzy deep in the cockles of my heart. But yes, you do that. And yes, you wouldn't really need this for Logic or GarageBand. This would be for video editing. Yeah, great question and great point. Yes, so if you're creating music, I mean, if you're an absolute serious Logic creator, and let's say you're recording 192 kilohertz 24-bit audio, and you've got projects that are 100 tracks with all the effects and everything going on, yeah, maybe the Ultra is something that you would be looking for. But your average GarageBand or Logic creator is just not going to use the power. You're going to be absolutely fine with the M1 Mini or the iMac. Brad says, I'm glad I got the iPad Pro recently. Bought isn't already obsolete, so I should be okay with my iPad for a while longer. Yeah, exactly. And look, I'm not upgrading from my iPad Pro 2020. That's 2 years old now. It's still, as Jade said before, because of some of the limitations around what we can actually do and the fact that it hasn't quite opened up to everything being available. The 2020 iPad Pro or even the 2018 iPad Pro, basically, as soon as they went USB-C, those are all good. Yes, the M1 original is just fine for music creation. Absolutely. So on the front, you can see you've also got some connectivity. You've got your SD card reader there, which is important, again, for folks that are shooting video and shooting sort of high quality video. And you've got two more Thunderbolt ports on the front there, which again is a cool thing. And I must admit, on the Mac Mini, the lack of front I/O is a little bit annoying. So when I'm plugging stuff in, it's all on the back there. So if I've got like a Thunderbolt drive, it has to plug into the back, and just having those additional Thunderbolt ports at the front will just help you. Again, every minute, every second for a creator is going to count. Yeah, and down the bottom right there, you see it's got drives over 90 million pixels. So this I thought was pretty impressive. You can run up to four 4K displays with this. What do they say? Four 4K displays or 5K displays and a 4K TV. So pretty darn cool. So up to 20 core CPU and up to 64 core GPU, which is just kind of ridiculous. You obviously got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on board there. You've got up to 8 terabytes of SSD, so it starts at the 1 terabyte up to 8 at the moment. So that's pretty good. Again, for creators, that's the same as what we had on the previous. Yeah, up to 128 gigabytes of unified memory, and that's going to be the big thing. They talked about the fact that 48 gigabytes is kind of the maximum for a standard sort of workstation if you're using sort of an Intel PC, but to be able to have all 128 gigabytes of shared memory means if you've got a graphics intense process but you're not using much in terms of the actual CPU, in terms of actual CPU cycles, it can just push all that memory to the graphics. So if you're rendering, yeah, these things are going to be beasts when it comes to rendering machines. All right. So that is the Mac Studio. Let me just check my notes here and make sure I talked about everything. So yeah, footprint of 7.7 inches, basically the same as the Mini. We talked about all the ports, the 4 Pro displays you can do there, the RAM, and yeah, same again. You can order these today, and they'll be released on the 18th of March. And they did tease the Mac Pro, so that's obviously something that is coming down the track. The last thing that they mentioned, and again, am I going to line up for a studio display for $1,599? Not right now, but if I bought myself a Mac Studio, would I be super tempted to pick up one or possibly two of these? Maybe. I would probably forego a little bit of the power or the RAM or the storage, and maybe I'd grab one of these because they look really good. So it's a 5K display. So what do they call their thing? It's the I can't find whatever the Mac they call it, like liquid retina, blah blah blah. So there's a few cool things on here. So yes, it's a very nice low bezel display. You can plug your Mac into it. They've got new like silver and black magic accessories and everything. But here's the cool thing. It's got the built-in speakers and the built-in microphone. So it has studio quality microphones in there. So you will get decent quality if you're just using that. Obviously, you're not going to use that for your video or your audio recording, but in even just doing something like a Zoom call or doing something if you want that professional sound and look without plugging in all your gear, that's pretty cool. And it's got 3 USB-C ports on board. So that could be definitely very handy to be able to have those right there on your monitor. You can chart, so it's got a, where is it over here? There it is. So 96 watt power delivery via Thunderbolt. So that's pretty darn cool. So there's a Thunderbolt port on there as well as the 3 USB-C ports. So if you were using this in conjunction with a laptop and you say you had your MacBook Pro, you can plug in your MacBook Pro directly to your monitor and then have it charged up all the time. And then when you're on the go, you just unplug it and you go away. So that could be pretty cool. And then you could be using that same MacBook Pro to actually display on the monitor. So maybe, I don't know, do I take one for the team? I'll see how much they cost in Australia. Do I spend $2,500, the 3 times the cost of my Mac Mini, and then plug this into my MacBook Pro? I don't know. Tempt me. See if we can actually get Pete to do it. Maybe I'll just go in and play around with it in the Apple Store. That's what I tend to like to do a bit. So yes, there's a lot going on with this. And again, as I mentioned at the start, my monitors are like $300 monitors. I use Asus monitors. I've been using the same ones for nearly 10 years. They're getting a bit dull, actually. They probably need replacing soon, but they do the job, so I've kept with them. So that is your studio display. Leela's saying, yes, take one for the team. Would be kind of fun. Maybe I'll go and knock on Apple's door and I'll say, look, I know you're not going to send me a Mac Studio since you've already let me borrow a MacBook Pro, but what about a studio display? Come on, doesn't hurt to be cheeky, does it? Sometimes. Alrighty. So that is everything I wanted to talk here about. Like I said at the start, I don't get too emotional about this sort of thing. Is it good, bad, or otherwise? It's just a thing. I don't know. I'll let Apple do all the emoting and talk about, use all the superlatives. I just wanted to give you the information, the factual information, as quickly as I could without too much of the guff. But now we're going to get to the fun bit. We can open up for your questions. And we're going to price up some of these suckers. So I'm going to do what I usually do here, and I like to do it in Australian currency because it costs a little bit more over here to get things. So we'll jump into the store in a moment. But if you do have any questions, please throw those here in the chat. We've got about 10 more minutes to go, and we can answer any questions. And if you don't, I'll just basically price things up and terrify my wife when she comes back in and sees my screen and sees what I've been shopping for. No, I wouldn't do that. There's actually not anything that I need out of this stuff right now. All right, so we are okay. So it's put me onto apple.com now. Let me just fix this, shall we? Because I opened up in Safari, and now it thinks I'm in the US. So I'll go back to my comfort zone, even though we are looking at Apple products. I'll go back to my comfort zone of Google Chrome, and we'll jump over here. So let's go shopping, shall we? So we'll jump in here to the store. We are in the Australian store, so please keep that in mind. And first up, we're going to buy a phone. So we're going to jump into the phone here, and you can see here we've got our iPhone 13 Pro, our iPhone 13, and the new pre-order for the iPhone SE. And there you go, it is 719 of my Australian dollary dues. So let's jump in here and price one of these up. I would go the red, of course, because it goes faster. We all know that. I would go the 256 gigabyte. To be honest, that's about the only thing that's holding me back on this, because I've got 512 on this, and because I video edit on my phone, I actually use about 400 to 500 gigabytes. So I would have to be a little leaner if I did go to this. Or maybe I wouldn't go I'm like, do I get it as a second phone for like 64 gig? No, I'd have to go the 256. So nothing to trade in, and there you go. So it's 969 of my Australian dollars, so about $700 US if I wanted to pick that one up. If SE is good enough, might trade SE 2020 to the roommate. Yeah. I think it's worth it, Leela. I think the A15 Bionic is such a fast chip that having that additional power, because the other one had the A12, so it's a big upgrade from the 2020, to be honest, or it might have been the A13. Anyway, it's definitely an upgrade, and you'll definitely find it much snappier and much faster. That display has way too many extras for the average user, considering the price. Yeah, it does. It's not for the average user, and again, I don't think that much of this stuff, apart from the SE, apart from this one here, I don't think a lot of the other stuff is for the quote-unquote average user. I think a lot of it is higher end. But I think the SE3 is something that folks could go with. Nothing there I need right now. I would have been hoping for an M1 Pro Mini. Yeah, and there is still a gap. It's a really good point there that Gregory makes. There is still a gap. And why don't we jump around a bit? Let's go and look at the Macs. Because at the moment, if you were buying a Mac, obviously, you've got the Mac Studio. So, I was on the ball. It's $3,099. So that's the $1,999 one. It's $3,099 for me here in Australia. And the Studio display is from $2,499. Yeah. Made myself cough with my own. So, when you compare that to something like the MacBook Pro, and then especially the Mac Mini, so a Mac Mini with the Pro would probably be the perfect balance, and I would be very surprised if we don't see that next time around. The M1 Pro in the Mac Mini and the iMac, I think, is the next logical step that Apple will likely make, I would say. Thomas says, I'm kind of eyeing up the iPad Air if I can ever find enough coins to put together. Yeah, it's definitely a tempting one. Josh White says, still on the iPhone 8, thinking about the SE. I think it would be a really good upgrade from the iPhone 8. And the benefit is, it's an iPhone 8 chassis, basically. So you'd be going to almost the exact same form factor. It would just be full of amazing guts. Full of amazing guts. See, you never quite know what's going to happen around here. All right, so let's price up a Mac. You know what we've got to do? We've got to spec out a Mac Studio to the most power we possibly can. We're going to add everything because I reckon we can get this well over 10K. I really do. So we're obviously going to go with this one, the M1 Ultra. So we'll select that. Starting price of 6099. Yeah, we're gonna crush this. No problem at all. All right. So realistically, if I was buying one, I'd probably get something about like this with the 1 terabyte, the 64 gig of unified. You'd probably want to. So what can you go up to? You can add it to go to the 20 core 64 and 30. Okay, so the GPU. So I wouldn't need the extra 1500 for that GPU, but if you wanted to, we'll go for it. The unified memory is going to be 1200 to go up to the next level. The storage, I mean, this is going to get ridiculous. If you're at 8 terabytes of storage, there you are. You're up at 12K. I won't add the software because I do already own that. Will it give me the option to add? We'll do the studio, we'll do the monitor again in a moment. But yeah, we can either get up to 12 grand. So it'll be about 9,000, I think, US for the absolute spec'd out. Again, I'd probably only need to go to 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes of storage like that. So yeah, I don't think so. And I don't even know that I'd need 128 gig of memory. So realistically, I'd only be spending 8 grand. maybe next financial year. Maybe when I need a new asset to write off for the business, I need to invest in the Mac Studio. But yeah, you can definitely go pretty nuts with that. It's not going to be for everyone. Let's continue there. I'll just leave this up. Again, my wife will walk in and she'll be like, what have you been doing? Okay. Ooh, look, so we got you can add the display. No thanks. Standard glass or nano texture glass. Ooh. Stand. We'll get the tilt and height adjustable stand. There you go. So also this is interesting. Ships in 5 to 6 weeks. So even though it's available on the 18th of March, as per usual, some will vary. So different configurations will actually get you. Will have different dates. So again, what you'll normally find is if you order the absolute base model or something, with no changes to specs, yeah, there you go. Delivery 18th of March in metro areas. As soon as you start tweaking things and changing things, see, it goes to the 16th of March if you change that one up. If we go to that one, 3 to 4 weeks. If we change the memory, there you go. Sometimes you can find the sweet spot. So it'll be the 16th of March if we get that one with the 128. But if you only go the 64, they won't be in stock there. And then again, if you go and start changing the storage, sometimes actually the storage doesn't seem to impact it. So they can obviously slip in and out the SSDs pretty quickly, but some of the actual sort of stuff wired to the board, there's going to be different things. There you go. Assets to write off for the win. Yes. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I know it's not related to this, but Tremor Bear, how good is his new track? And it was a pleasure to be able to do some vocals on it and work on it. Very, very cool. Ironically, the battery died in my 6S there. Oh dear. Poor old 6S. All right, so so there's the Mac Studio. Let's finish off by pricing ourselves up the new iPad, shall we? So if I was to grab one of these, it's from $9.29 here in Australia, so $5.99 US, $9.29 Australian, and I don't have any iPads with the M1 chip, so this is likely, if I was going to buy another iPad just for sort of work and use here in the studio, I'd probably go with this, because I don't really need a Pro. And this looks like it'd be pretty cool. So what will we go? Well, let's go Starlight. Oh, Starlight, Starbright. Storage. Again, the storage only being 256 gigabytes is a bit not disappointing, but again, it's pretty low for a more of a pro device. It would be cool to see a 512 model there, but 256 is still more than enough for most creators. And it's only 11.59 Australian, so it'd be about $800 US to get that. In fact, it is $7.99 US for this model. If you add the Magic Keyboard for iPad Air, it would be an extra $450. Yeah, so there's a lot of things you can do. You can add the smart keyboard as well if you want to go something a bit cheaper. Delivery currently unavailable. Well, that's interesting. So currently unavailable. I wonder if we change some of this up. What if we go space gray and we go base model. It's really important to check this stuff if you're looking to buy. Before you get super excited, come in here and actually check the availability. Delivery in stock. All right, so that one is in stock in that color. So sometimes you do just have to tweak your settings, and sometimes you might have to go with a different color depending on what's in stock at the time. So that one is currently unavailable. So there you go. The 256 gig models seem to be pretty unavailable, which is sad. Sad news. Thank you, Leela. Putting my money where my big mouth is. Well, thank you. Yes, and I appreciate that, because the donations that you folks make, the donations that my patrons make here on the channel, and the wonderful sponsors we have like DistroKid, as well as obviously the advertising that you watch, because you'll watch the ads. Yeah, no one clicks through the ads. You're all watching. Yeah. No, it really does help, and I really do appreciate you and for being here. Yes, the studio looks like a game changer. I think so, and you don't want to oversell it and overplay it, but it's been a pretty revolutionary couple of years for Apple. They're a multi-trillion-dollar business for a reason, and as I mentioned before, quarter on quarter, they're seeing their profits increase, and they're seeing the sales increase. And people like me, I was an iPhone user and an iPad user. I've kind of become a power user of everything. I have Macs now. I have Magic Keyboards. Like, I'm investing a lot in Apple, and I'm doing it because they're actually making products that are new level. So if I was sitting down now and I'm building out a studio of any sort, whether it's an art studio or a video studio or a music studio, it would be really hard to actually grab a PC and think that that's going to be your best option, because the range that they're now getting there, and as soon as that Pro comes out, wow, it's going to be next level. Josh says, I have M1 Pro and 13 crashed Logic at 180 tracks. Yeah, I mean, you can still crash it. You can still push it too hard. But yeah, it is pretty amazing. That is going to do it, folks. Thank you for hanging out with us here today. I hope you got some value out of this one. I hope you enjoyed the chat without all the waffle and the superlatives, just the facts, ma'am. And finally, I just wanted to say it is International Women's Day. So all the female creators out there, you folks rock. You're doing a really good job. And Apple actually did a really good job making sure that there was a lot of female representation in the presentation today. So for what it's worth, kudos to them for that. All right, that is going to do it. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Do check out the links down in the description. There's a whole lot more coverage here of all sorts of things related to music creation, video creation. Looking forward to checking out that new version of iMovie when it drops. And if you purchase any of these products, or if you plan to, let us know down in the comments. There's also timestamps down there, don't forget. So if you're watching on the replay, you can get to all the different sections nice and easily. Thanks for being here. Please be kind to yourself this week. Please be kind to others. Keep creating, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.